Welcome to the Warbird Mistress. This is London Calling. Good evening. Today is Friday, 16th of August, 1940, and it is yet another day of steel in our skies and blood on our soil. Last night was busy with small raids, and dawn brought a fair, warm day perfect for flying. Jerry took full advantage of this and began towards airfields in the Norfolk, Kent, and Greater London areas, and Chainholme gave enough warning to put up 12 squadrons to face them. One of 11 Group's headquarters stations at Westmaling was once more struck, and the repair and ordnance crews had to dodge the bombs and bullets of the 18 Hun bombers and the high-explosive bombs mixed with incendiary devices. The station was knocked out of action and is expected to remain so for 4 more days. Larger strikes were planned for just after midday. At that point, our Chainholme screens looked like so many Christmas lights as 3 waves erupted from the French coast. 50 towards the Thames estuary, thrice that towards Dover, 100 more towards Portsmouth and Southampton. 350 aircraft were heading through the light cloud cover, many evading the dozen squadrons of Hurricanes and Spitfires sent aloft by 10, 11, and 12 groups to meet them. In Surrey, the Maiden rail station was hit and the railways put out of action. Bombs landed in residential Wimbledon and Esher. Gravesend and Tilbury were struck as well. The aerodromes at Harwell and Farnborough were hit by the scurrilous bandits. The Luftwaffe overwhelmed escorts in some places and relied on the clouds and good timing for their devious luck. Off Portland, the bombers struck at airfields throughout the south of England. Ventnor was knocked out nearly completely. Some sheltered rooms, a receiving block, and the diesel house were all that remained of the already heavily damaged facility. It is not expected to return to operation until the 23rd, and only when mobile units can be brought forward. At Lyon-Solent, the fleet air arm took a blow from the German bombers, and what was not struck by high-explosive bombs faced the wrath of the incendiaries dropped by the raiders. At Gosport, buildings were damaged, 4 persons killed, and another 2 people seriously wounded by the dozen U-88s and their Bf-110 escorts that struck the Hampshire airfield. At RAE Farnborough, 8 U-88s struck the motor pool and did heavy damage. Delayed action bombs and unexploded ordnance are preventing any recovery at this time. As if making up for yesterday's failure to recreate Lindisfarne, the Hun certainly made himself worthy of his stolen Norman home in their strike across the Channel. The Stukas descending on the Tangmere complex had evaluated the target and chosen wisely. Not a single hangar remained standing. The sick quarters were also destroyed utterly. The pumping station is no more. Workshops and store sheds went up like so many twigs as the siren screamed forth the arrival of descending gold-winged goblins of determined destructive domination. Electricity was cut off, water mains destroyed, sanitation facilities rendered useless, and fires could not be fought as water pressure was nil and firefighting equipment faced countless obstructions against them. Losses included 3 Blenheims written off as total losses and another 3 as damaged. 7 Hurricanes were heavily damaged, as well as a Magister. Material losses aside, the raid also cost the lives of 10 servicemen and 3 civilians. A further 20 individuals suffered severe injury. The damage to one of our most important defense centers is, indeed, incredible, and a sure sign of the shift in German strategy towards destroying our island's ability to fight off what Herr Hitler must be thinking will be our end. While Tangmere, Ventnor, and Westmaling certainly bore the brunt of German attention today, the final assault was perhaps the smallest yet most damaging to our future defenses. The training station at Brize Norton, home to No. 2 Service Flying Training School and No. 23 Group's Maintenance Unit, was struck by 2 U-88s this evening. The final incident of the day saw the deadly duo drop 32 bombs on the facility's hangars and service sheds, rendering 46 trainers in the flame-engulfed hangars to ashes, damaging other buildings and killing 10 servicemen. While our losses in facilities on the ground and in Training Command's ability to get more men aloft to fight Jerry were high, Germany paid a high price. 44 German aircraft were destroyed today and 55 airmen were lost. On our side, we paid dearly with 24 aircraft lost in action and 11 airmen killed, mortally wounded, or listed forever among the missing. No. 266 Squadron mourns the loss of commanding officer, Squadron Leader Rodney Leverett Wilkinson. A Shrewsbury native and son of one of the heroic dead from the Great War, he was graduated from RAF College Cranwell in December 1930 and was assigned to No. 3 Squadron. He then served on staff at HQ Transjordan in Palestine, where he was posted to Jerusalem as personal assistant to Air Officer Commanding Sir Wilfrid Friedman. After a year, he returned to the UK to be the instructor at Cambridge University Air Squadron. He took a post at the Air Ministry in January of 39, where he stayed until taking up a refresher course in converting to Spitfires, now in our hour of need. He took up command of 266 on 6 July 1940, and his first victory came on 12 August when he downed a DO-17, and he quickly followed up with a U-88 kill on the 15th. Today he was engaging the enemy over Deal when he collided with the Bf-109 of Unteroffizier Bruder of 4 JG-51. Wilkinson was killed on impact when his Spitfire R-6768 crashed and burned out near Eastry Court. Bruder bailed out and was taken prisoner. Wilkinson is to be buried at Margate Cemetery. Number 266 Squadron's pilot officer Nigel Greenstreet Bowen, a graduate of St. Edward's School, Oxford, and originally from Wallingford, Berkshire, where his father was rector of St. Mary's, was killed today when he was shot down by a Bf-109. Having joined the RAF just before the outbreak of war, he damaged a 109 over Dunkirk, and he destroyed a U-88 on 12 August before he was lost today. His aircraft, Spitfire N3095, crashed and burned out at Addisham. He is to be buried near his home at Wallingford Cemetery. Fleet Air Arm Sub-Lieutenant Henry laFone Greenshields, known to his squadron mates as Sinbad, was killed outside Calais after being chased across the Channel by Lieutenant Muller-Dua of JG-26. A noted competition shooter while a Lance Corporal in the Officer Training Corps as a youth at Sherborne School, he joined the de Havilland Aircraft Company after he was turned down by the RAF on account of failing to meet eyesight standards. Not to be put off, he joined the Navy's Volunteer Reserve and was called up to service at the outbreak of war. Attached to the RAF and converting to Spitfires beginning on 23 June, he joined 266 Squadron only 1 week later on the 1st of last month. He was one of the FAA airmen attached to the RAF to alleviate our shortage of pilots, and entered RAF service on 23 June 1940, joining 266 Squadron at Wittering on 1st July. His new mates quickly exchanged his traditional nickname of Hank for one appropriate for a naval officer, Sinbad. His first victory was just yesterday when he shot down a Bf-109. Today he was chased across the Channel after a dogfight and his Spitfire crashed and burned out near a canal in the Calais suburbs. He is to be buried at Calais Southern Cemetery. Number 111 Squadron counts among their lost Henry Michael Ferris, a pilot with the University Air Squadron while reading at London University in preparation for a medical career at St. Thomas Hospital that he could no longer afford to pursue. Leaving this career path in July 1937, he joined the RAF on a short service commission, joining the Treble 1 at 7 May 1938. With the outbreak of war, he remained with his squadron, first seeing combat and patrols over France in the spring of 1940. With the outbreak of war, he remained with his squadron, first seeing combat and patrols over France during that campaign this spring. He had to his credit a probable Heinkel 111 and one shared Heinkel 111 in April, 3 Bf-110s and a probable in May, 3 Bf-109s in June, and a Bf-109, a shared DO-17, and a damaged Heinkel 59 in July. In August, he had so far a DO-17 kill, with another DO-17 damaged, and a third DO-17 as a probable kill. Today he was lost attacking yet another DO-17 when he crashed into one from 7 KG-76 while executing a head-on attack over Martyn. He was killed instantly and his Hurricane R-4193 crashed at Sheephurst Farm while the DO-17 crashed at Moatlands Benchley in Paddock Wood. He is to be buried at St. Mary's in Chislehurst, Kent. The first American casualty occurred today when Pilot Officer William Meade Lindsley Fiske III of Chicago, Illinois, was mortally wounded. Fisk was raised as a member of the eminent Fisk banking family, who had their origins in Suffolk. He arrived in the UK in 1928 at the age of 16, where he read economics and history at Trinity, Cambridge. He continued his connection with the colonies by leading the United States Olympic bobsleigh team in 1928 and 1932. Although he took home gold at both St. Moritz and Lake Placid, he did not participate in 1936 due to his disgust with the National Socialist Germany. Working in London with Dillon Reed and Company, he took flying lessons and qualified for his license in 1938. The same year he wed Rose Bingham, erstwhile Countess Warwick. Moving between London and New York, he would finally come to stay when invited by William Clyde of Auxiliary Air Force's No. 601 Squadron, the so-called Millionaires Squadron, famous for recruiting many members of society, especially from White's Club, of which Fisk was a member. Departing for the UK aboard Aquitania on 30 August 1940, he enlisted in the RAF upon arrival. Aware that he could be prosecuted by his own government for fighting for a foreign power, and that the RAF had little interest in recruiting from without the Commonwealth, he lied his way into being accepted as a Canadian enlistee. Unlike most, he went through advanced flight school while barracking at home with his wife in Minster Lovell. Commissioned on 12 April and posted to Clyde 601 Squadron on 12 July, he had yet never flown a Hurricane. And while he was initially thought of as a sort of Yankee playboy, he quickly showed himself to be a team player and an excellent pilot. He flew operationally for the first time on 20 July, and his first victory was on 13 August, a Junkers 88. Today he was sent to intercept Junkers 87s headed for his own base at Tangmere. Forcing the gold-winged goblins to drop their payloads over Pagham Harbour, the unit succeeded in saving their base from further damage, but not before Fisk's engine took a hit from one of the Stuka's gunners. Gliding back to Tangmere, he made a belly landing and his Hurricane P-3358 burst into flames. His lower body ablaze, he was carted off by 2 attentive Urks and taken to what remained of the medical hut, as it had only been hit by a German bomb minutes before Fisk came in for his landing. He will die of his wounds tomorrow morning. Quebec counted her first casualty in the Battle of Britain today. When added to the list of the missing is Montreal's pilot officer Joseph Emil Paul Laricheliere. A 1933 alumnus of the University of Montreal, he joined the RAF on a short service commission only days before the invasion of Poland. He joined 213 Squadron on 25 May after completing Hurricane training, and his first victories were on 13 August when he shot down a Bf-109 and 2 Bf-110s. On the 15th, he doubled his tour de chapeau with 2 more Bf-110s and a U-87 shot down. Today, he never returned to base and was last seen engaging the enemy off Portland. Britain's expat medical mission community in China mourns the loss of the late Dr. George Edwin King's son, Martyn A. King. Originally from West Mersey, he was raised in Shifu and attended schools of the China Inland Mission there until returning to England in 1938. He joined the RAF on a short service commission 2 weeks before the outbreak of war and was assigned to 249 Squadron on 9 June of this year, having completed his Hurricane training. His short career ended today when he attempted to bail out of a stricken fighter, Hurricane P-3616, while in combat over Southampton, only to have his parachute collapse during his descent, the impact only aggravating the condition of the already critically injured pilot officer King. He died this afternoon shortly after having arrived at Southampton's isolation hospital. Aged but 18 years at the time of his demise, he was and is to forever remain the youngest airman to fight in the Battle of Britain. Listed among the missing today is Flight Lieutenant William Henry Cromwell Warner of Yew Tree, Poplar Road, Oxton, Birkenhead, Cheshire, son of Sir Lionel Warner, CBE, of the Mersey Docks and Harbour Board, and Honorary Colonel of the Royal Artillery Training Academy. A prefect of his alma mater, Malvern College, he joined the Auxiliary Air Force's 610 Squadron in May of 1937 and was called up just before Hitler forced himself onto Poland's dance cart. Remaining with number 610, he scored a probable Bf-109 on 10 July before being made Flight Commander of B Flight and Acting Flight Lieutenant on the 26th. On 15 August, his scorecard doubled with another probable Bf-109. He was last seen today engaging a pair of 109s off Dungeness while aboard Spitfire R-6802. Despite the assistance of his squadron mate, Sergeant Pilot Onfield, Warner's Spitfire was seen to be damaged and out of control. Onfield was forced to break off the fight when he ran critically low of fuel, and Warner's fate was already seemed all but sealed. Rescue boats retrieved sections of his Spitfire, but Warner is not to be seen again, and is presumed dead. Australia's pilot officer Lawrence Lee Pyman of No. 65 Squadron was killed today when shot down over the Channel. An Australian from his parents' sheep station in Victoria and raised as to the manner Bowen in a proper English household, he took up flying at University Air Squadron before working in Australia, Trinidad, and Germany, where he learned to be fluent in the language in which his mother had raised him, his mother having been educated in Germany as a teenager. He continued to fly as a civilian while engaged in the UK by the British Thomson Houston Company as an electrical engineer, then joining the Volunteer Reserve in January of 1939. Called up in September last year, he trained through most of 1940, reaching 6th Operational Training Unit on 22nd June. His first victories were only in the last few days when on the 14th he destroyed a Bf-109 and damaged another. After a restful day yesterday, he flew a patrol this afternoon only for his airfield to be strafed in the late afternoon by 8 Freie-Jagd Bf-109s. He and 5 others scrambled and engaged the Messerschmitts over Deal, and he was shot down at 17:30 hours and crashed into the waves. His body will be recovered by the Germans and laid to rest adjacent to another of today's casualties, Fleet Air Arm Sub-Lieutenant Greenshields, at Calais Southern Cemetery, where they will be interred with full military honors provided by the Luftwaffe. Thank you for tuning in to the Warbird Mistress. This is London Calling, a day-by-day detail of the Battle of Britain, and I hope that you subscribe, watch the playlist for new editions, and do check out other offerings on this channel. Subscriptions through Patreon and YouTube are more than welcome to keep this channel going. Thank you and take care.